My name is Aneesh Pradhan and I'm a musician based in Mumbai. I'm a tabla player and a disciple of the illustrious maestro Pandit Nikhil Ghosh. Hi everybody. So I'm going to chat about tabla solo, tabla accompaniment to vocal and instrumental music. And of course, during the course of my talking to you and maybe demonstrating a little bit, I might not be able to take any questions immediately. So please feel free to type in your questions into the comments section, and then we'll address those questions soon after I finish my little presentation. And I'm helped today with the moderating part by Shivangini Yeashu Yuvraj. She's a student of music. She's a disciple of, she learned earlier from Girija Devi, the Thumri exponent, and now she learns from Shubha Mudgal. Thanks very much for joining in to this session hosted by CSMBS Mumbai. As you all know, this is a premier institution not only of the city but of the country. I have fond memories of my association with the museum right from my school days. I still remember the first time that I visited the museum was when I was in my second grade. It was part of a school excursion. And thereafter, of course, I have been making trips to the museum. Even during my college days, my college was just across the street, Elphinstone College. So it was always an inspiration to be at the museum, and still is. So thanks very much, CSMBS Mumbai. That's Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya. Okay, I think we can start with the session. Perfect frame. Fantastic. All right, then, let me tell you a little bit about this instrument, the tabla. I've been passionate about the tabla since the age of 6. And I started by wanting to learn singing, but somehow I landed up studying tabla, and I just stuck to it. The tabla, as many of you would know, is an integral part of Hindustani music. It accompanies vocal music, instrumental music, and even Kathak dance. But it's also used in a lot of experimental work, intercultural musical exchange, in film music, in advertisement jingles, and now you have sampled tabla sound as well. So it's really an integral part of our music scape. It's also used in Hollywood, not just Bollywood, but even Hollywood. So as you can see, it's a twin drum. The one on the right is called tabla or daya. The one on the left is called baya or dagga. So this one is the treble drum, and this is the bass drum. And they are played individually or as compound strokes. So I'll go over the language of the instrument. Each of the strokes that are played on the instrument can be recited. And that's how we learn compositions for solo repertoire. For instance, na, tete, thun, ghe, ke, kat. And then you join the two. So ghe and na becomes dha, dhin, and then you have these single letters are made into slightly longer phrases. So, for instance, dha din din da. And so on and so forth. So, about the two key roles that the tabla plays. One is, of course, when we go to our teacher or guru, we normally start with learning solo repertoire. We don't start with learning accompaniment per se. And what do we learn in the solo repertoire? So there are fixed compositions, some of which are extendable compositions or follow a theme and variations pattern. And the other kind of compositions are non-extendable ones. So they're literally like short poems, 4 lines, 8 lines. And so we keep memorizing these compositions. So your guru recites the composition first, you learn it by heart, then he or she teaches you how to play it, and then you learn how to reproduce the same material on the tabla, and then as reference material you can write down the composition. But of course we don't use it as notation when we are performing. So you have to memorize all this like virtually like a hard disk. So essentially how the music moves is that the tabla maintains a rhythmic canvas, and the rhythmic canvas in Hindustani music is called tal. So this is a rhythmic cycle. Each cycle has a fixed number of time units, or what we call matras. So for instance, if you have one of the most popular tals in Hindustani music is Teen Tal, which has 16 matras, and that's divided into 4 equal parts. So this is how we are taught to count the tal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 1. So you have to come back to the 1 to complete the cycle. But obviously we don't play matras on the instrument. We play the syllables, these mnemonic syllables. So what is the pattern that we play to represent these 16 matras, for instance? This is called the theka. Theka of this tal is dha dhin dhin dha, dha dhin dhin dha, dha tin tin ta ta dhin dhin da dha. Now I'll play that for you. First, just the skeletal framework. So that's 16 plus 1 of the next cycle. But this seems really sterile because I have not really colored this skeletal framework. So how does one color the framework? So for instance, this bass drum allows you to, with the pressure of your wrist on the skin, so you can bend the sound, and you can also reduce or increase the resonance of the right hand as well. So now I'll play the same 16 but with a bit of color. Dha. So you see I've given some pressure between the strokes. Now if I want to color it further, I will introduce a few strokes or embellishments to this framework. Dha, so it's still 16, but I've colored it. Now, when a tabla player is accompanying vocal or instrumental music, or even Kathak dance, what we're supposed to do is to maintain this rhythmic canvas as a strong anchor for the soloist to navigate through the melodic ideas that he or she may have, or even the abhinay or the gestures or movement that the dancer may have. But we don't only play this framework, we also respond to the musical ideas, the melodic ideas. So at some points we may color the framework more densely. For instance, likewise, then we go on to playing longer sections depending on what the melodic idea requires as a response. And of course that determines the individuality of the tabla player. So some people may respond to the same melodic idea in more dense or cluttered manner, and some may make it very sparse. So it depends, and of course the response of the audience, of the soloist, is also very subjective. So you might think that you're doing the right thing, but they might not always respond equally. Coming back to the solo repertoire, there are, as I said, there are these compositions which we learn over years and years, and these compositions have evolved over the past 250 years or so, since the mid 18th century. And there are 6 major schools of tabla playing: Delhi, Ajrada, Lucknow, Farrukhabad, Banaras, and Punjab. And each of these has its own peculiarity with regard to the technique as well as the repertoire. Of course, particularly since the late 19th century, we've seen a lot of eclectic flavor in tabla playing. And that is perhaps also because tabla players have to play with a wide variety of vocalists, instrumentalists, and dancers. And so they need to have an ease with the complete vocabulary of the instrument. So it's necessary to expose yourself to this vocabulary plus the kind of repertoire that all this vocabulary brings together. So I'll give you a brief glimpse of each of these forms, compositional forms that we play in solo repertoire. To begin with, we have something called peshkar, which literally means to present. And so it starts in a very sparse manner, and then slowly you introduce different permutation combinations. It's once again a theme and variations frame, and but you're allowed to go beyond the vocabulary that you're using in the theme, and so you can take extraneous bowls as well. So I'll just give you a brief idea. What happens when the tabla player is a soloist? We are normally accompanied by a harmonium player or a sarangi player, or sometimes even both. And there is a single melodic line, normally based on a particular rag, which is played, and that represents the cycle that you choose to explore in your solo recital. So for instance, in Teen Tal, there will be a cycle of 16. Just as we maintain it for a vocalist or instrumentalist, the harmonium or the sarangi player will maintain it for the tabla player. So we don't necessarily have to count through the recital. the nagma or the lehra that is being played on those instruments represents that time. And also that nagma is not very staccato, so depending on who the performer is, he or she will color that as well, and that inspires the tabla player to go further with the recital. So nowadays, of course, you have apps for nagmas as well, and apps for tanpuras, but the moment you put on those apps, then the sound of the instrument gets a little muddled. So I thought I'll just give you a demonstration by humming the nagma a little bit. Da 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 da. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16. Normally, many of the compositions in tabla repertoire, or even when you're accompanying, they end with a cadential phrase which is played thrice, and it's mathematically composed in a manner that the last syllable of the third time that you play that same phrase, it lands exactly on the sum or the first matra of the forthcoming cycle. And that's how that's the point of resolution. So that first matra is very important in every cycle, because it's a point of resolution for all the tension the musical tension that you've developed over one or more cycles. So there's always this tension and relief through the recital. So we go to the next major kind of composition. It's called qaida, and as the name suggests, there are very well defined rules to how one is supposed to navigate through the qaida. So the theme has a fixed fixed musical statement, and you have to do the variations using the vocabulary which is there in the theme. You can't use any extraneous bowls or strokes. So for instance, I'll play a very traditional Delhi Gharana qaida. Now if you notice, I have not played this stroke in this theme, so I can't use that stroke when I'm doing the variations. So it starts at a particular tempo, you go double that tempo, and then you do all the variations normally. This is the conventional way of playing a qaida, and then you end with that cadential phrase that I spoke about, and that's called a tihai. And then you come back to the theka or the framework of the rhythmic cycle or the tal, and then you go on to the next composition. So was just a short exposition. We go on to the next extendable composition, which is called Rela, and that gives a drone kind of effect. The sound is like a drone, and there's very intricate filigree work with the bowls of the tabla. And it's played quite fast. And then we go to the non-extendable section, which are those short compositions that I spoke about. I'll jump straight to the climactic part, which is played at a very fast tempo. I'll recite one composition and then reproduce it. So that was a short glimpse into what solo repertoire for tabla is like, and that how a solo recital develops. And now perhaps it's time for me to invite Shivangini on board. I must admit that this Instagram session is the first one that I've ever done, the live session, and the first one that I've conducted myself. So please excuse me for any faults. And let me just see. Okay, Shivangini, how do I do this? So I've had many gurus for this, from the CSMVS team, from Shivangini, from everybody. Okay. Yes. Oh, great. Shivangini.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. So,
Thank you.
Was I okay? Did I manage it fine?
All of us were having a great time.
Okay, so should I move in front or what? The frame. Can you see the tabla? Or you don't
We are
need
not. We don't
now
see the
we're not-
tabla, but
Okay, fine. All right.
if possible, the phone could move a little further away. But this is also fine. We are able to see you,
Okay.
not the tabla.
All right. Okay. Fine.
Wow.
Thank you once again for joining me in this session. And
Thank you for considering me worthy of joining
no.
you. And thank you CSMVS Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya for
Absolutely.
thinking of this. Yes, it's all of us were having a great time. Of course, you couldn't have seen all the comments and all the hearts, but I was, and everyone who was viewing was also able to see.
I confess that my heart was throbbing because I was hoping that the session would go fine, and I don't make a mess of it. So.
2 seconds. No, we had a great time. In fact, again, you wouldn't know this. This is very interesting. When you started humming the Nagma,
Yes.
suddenly the activity level of the viewers went really high. If there were a graph, Instagram would have in their insights, it would peak there.
Okay.
Yes, and that was really nice. And in fact, I think at least I have seen something like this for the first time live, where you have, can you hear me? Right. Where you have explained the components of a solo tabla recital, and in a manner where, without knowing the vocabulary of tabla, so to say, I won't be able to transcribe it live while you play in my head. Yet, when you say that Rela is something, there was Rela,
Yes.
which sounds like a continuous drone, and
Yes.
then I could relate to it. So I'm sure a lot of us could, who don't know tabla in terms of vocabulary or as their principal instrument. So the next time we hear a tabla solo, or we know that a tabla solo is happening, I think we'll be a little more inclined to hear it and also be able to relate that,
That's
probably that's a Rela.
Thank you, and I have to say that a lot of tabla players have been contributing to popularize this instrument and
Yes.
bring closer to listeners. As you rightly said, that not too many listeners know the nuances of solo repertoire. So tabla players do a lot of lecture demonstrations as and when they are invited to do that.
And it's great, as many as of them can happen. It's only going to help. It's not enough ever.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Right, sir. So should I come
Yes,
to a
if
few
you-
questions that
Sure.
people have, and then
You have some questions, and I don't know whether anybody else has asked any questions. And I believe we have to keep a watch on the watch.
yes, we do. We have about 28 minutes, or let's
Okay.
say 27, and the last 1 minute to say bye.
All right.
And meanwhile, everyone, please, if you have more questions, please type them and send them from the comment section, the comment feature. not the question feature, because the questions feature only Anish ji can see and he's far away from his phone. So
But
in the
there's nothing.
comments.
Right now there's no notification of
Ha! Right now
questions.
we've had all the questions in the comment section only, so that's great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Before we go ahead, I wanted to make a point here that for all those who have joined us on this session, if some of you have not visited CSMBS ever, please do make that visit. It's an absolutely amazing place, an absolutely amazing team there. So please do that, and they have a great collection of instruments, of ragmala paintings, of iconography that is related to music. So those are things that you could also see. I mean, of course, you can see much more than that. But if
Right.
your interest is music specific, then that's where you should really go.
So, Anish ji, since you've mentioned this, before I come to the questions that the viewers have asked, can I take the liberty of asking something related to what you've just said
Sure.
about the museum? It's interesting that we are virtually speaking for the museum from their Instagram page, and of course it represents history. You have a doctorate in history, and you are a music historian. I don't know how many of the viewers know that. Of course, you mentioned your college was right across the street.
Yes.
I don't know if they knew you were studying history there.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Right. So now coming to tabla, you have mentioned a little bit of history for this instrument. But any extremely interesting facts from history that people could really relate to for tabla?
So actually, the history of this instrument, of course, the documented history dates back to, let's say, 18th century. But prior to that, I mean, there are many tabla players and some scholars who believe that, from whatever 2nd century BC, you have instruments in sculptures which kind of look like the tabla, upright, vertical percussive instruments.
Okay.
But then what happened in the interim is the question.
Right.
So it's whereas when you see pictorial representations, they come much later. So it's and so much of its history is also confused with myth, as is the case with a lot of our history. And so for instance, there is a myth that a very popular myth that Pakhavaj was its predecessor. Pakhavaj is a cylindrical drum, and it's beautiful sound instrument. It's played solo as well as played with Drupad Damar,
Right.
or the Rudraveena.
G.
So that was the predecessor. It has a vocabulary very similar to tabla, but they say that somebody broke that instrument, and then it still played. So tab bhi bola, and that's why it's not tabla. But this is, I mean, there's no documentary evidence for that. And sure, the tabla, the evolution of tabla has been influenced by various instruments from here, as from India or the Indian subcontinent, as well as instruments from the Middle East. So it's very difficult to pinpoint what is the origin. Where did it all start? But as I said, that we have evidence of these 6 major schools or gharanas of tabla playing existing.
Right.
And we have, through the oral tradition, from Sina Basina Talim, from Guru to Shishya, we have learned this repertoire. So this repertoire still exists.
Right. In fact, we have a question related to the gharanas.
Yes.
Ragini Pastrita asks, is any of this example one of the composition forms that you demonstrated? For example, Rela, more associated with a particular gharana? Is any of these forms more associated with a particular gharana?
Yes, particularly the non-extendable ones that I spoke of, which I did towards the end, they primarily are from the Purab style, or Lucknow, Farrukhabad, Banaras, or even Punjab. Whereas the Delhi Ajrada style concentrated more on Peshwa, Qaida, Rela. But again, with everything that you say about Indian tradition, there are always exceptions to the rule. And like I said, that from the 19th century, we've had an eclectic paper. So you do have exponents of Delhi Gharana also composing those non-extendable compositions like Tukras, Chakradars, and vice versa. So the Purab maestros have composed Qaida, Rela, even Peshwa.
Right.
Yes.
So probably this would be a good point to take one of the requests.
Yes.
We have a request saying, would be great to hear a few more compositions. Would you like to
Sure.
play a non-extendable, or your wish?
Okay.
What
I'll
would
play
you
the
like to?
short compositions.
Okay.
So, yeah. So there was a very famous composer, Ustad Amir Hussain Khasa, who lived in Mumbai, and he is one of my that means my guru's guru. So I'll play a couple of his compositions.
Sure.
Din din da da din din da 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 ka te te ta din tran da 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 ge ge na ta da ge ge na ta da ge ge na ta da din din da din da. And I'll just share an interesting piece of information that we have. This happens in vocal music also. We have something called joda. So it's like a composition that is inspired by another one, or kind of mirrors that one. And so another composition similar to this, a joda of this, again composed by Ustad Amir Hussain Khasa.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are these forms named something
Yeah.
like?
So these are called tukras.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, are all smaller pieces called tukras?
No, not necessarily. So there you have a form called gat. You have got tukra. You have chakradar. You have short ones which are just maybe 4 matras or 8 matras. They are called mohras.
Oh.
Yes. So there are many varieties actually.
So if one had to listen to all of these varieties or most of these varieties, I believe there must be albums or points, recorded material that they could
Yes,
also hear.
a lot of material has been recorded right from the time of the 78 RPMs. One of my grand gurus, Ustad Ahmad Jan Tharkwa, is perhaps recorded on almost all formats, including film. So if you visit YouTube, you'll find his film recordings. Film as in there are documentaries on him, or solo recitals have been captured on film as well.
Oh, Ustad Ahmad Jan Fareka ji, of
Yes,
course.
from the 1930s,
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. You also have albums, Anish ji, where you've played, let's say, a Peshkar and then a Qaida
Yes.
and a Rela.
Yes.
And
Yes.
would you like to share by what name, or if you remember,
So one
viewers?
called Tabla, a solo tradition, and the next one was Tabla, Tabla solo, a continuing tradition.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's available on Underscore Records. So and there are fairly extensive album notes, which explain these terms.
Right. Why I'm asking at this point is because you've just explained a few features, and of course, time is a concern, the limit we have.
Yes.
So after this, if one wants to get more informed,
sure.
Of course, they can listen to a few of these albums and relate to what you explained.
Sure, and if you can also listen to tabla players who belong to different gharanas, so you will get an idea of what those gharanas represent.
And okay, sure, I'll also make that point for myself.
Yes.
There is another question. While you were humming the Nagma and also playing all these beautiful compositions, are Peshkar and Qaida terminology from Mughal times? Their nomenclature?
Yes.
Okay.
Short
and sweet. Were they called something else, or this form only came to exist during the Mughal times? Were they called?
I think it must have evolved. It must have originated around that time. I don't know the exact date, but the you have words like this in Persian, or in Urdu. So you realize that the connection is definitely there.
Right. And of course, there are many compliments that people have paid you. One of them is, I do believe this is the first time I have heard of a theka being colored. So there's a painter in you.
Thank you. But everybody, all tabla players color the theka. Nobody plays a straight theka, the one that you get in the app.
Right. So, talking about colors, even in vocal music or instrumental music, melodic instruments, color, and of course, rag also is, the meaning of rag is supposed to be color, right? So, there's a lot of parallels drawn to visual arts when we listen to or learn to appreciate music. When it comes to solo tabla playing or even accompanying as an accompanying instrument, what about emotions and colors? Does it have a relationship to the kind of emotional expressions or the palette, the range of emotions that tabla can express, is capable of expressing?
Yes. I understand what you're saying. So it would be difficult to make a one-to-one correspondence, first of all. That, okay, sad, so this means this is sad. Or happy, no.
Right.
That. Yeah. So it's more nuanced, it's more layered. And it's the effect that you create when you're playing and responding to, let's say, the melodic idea, and also you can't look at the tabla and the solo instrument separately. They don't exist in a vacuum. It's a total sound picture. So, and that's why the team effort is so important in the ensemble. Even when the tabla player is a soloist, the team effort between the nagma player and the tabla player is so important. If it's just imagine if I was singing that, humming that nagma, mm, mm, da, 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 mm, da,
So,
da, 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 da. Automatically, I feel like playing like that, like a
right,
machine.
right, right.
But if you do da, na,
So basically, to explain the role of tabla in an ensemble or even as a solo instrument in that team, um, it's the response, it's the collaboration and the playing in tandem with other factors,
yes,
which brings it out, which brings out
yes,
the color and the role.
yes. It's a conversation. It's a communication between all the performers.
And so this should further help us appreciate the role of tabla even more when we hear it again, live or recorded next.
Well, I certainly hope so.
No, so we have a few more questions, sir.
Yes, sure.
Nilay asks, can you also please expound upon your riyaz schedules in your earlier days and how younger generations like us can take inspiration? But before that, can I come to another question?
Yes.
Probably is more related to what we were discussing. How the solo tabla differs from one when you're accompanying someone. Do you think the tone of tabla differs when you accompany different instruments? Does the tone differ when you
Yeah.
accompany different?
Okay, so the tone differs also. I mean, not the basic tone, because each person, depending on the kind of hands you have, literally the physical, if you have a very bony structure, then it's going to be different. If you have a little padded kind of thing, then the sound is a little different, and that's something that you're born with, and then you grow up like that. But of course, there is something that you also cultivate, the tonal quality, and depending on what your teacher has taught you and the sanskars that you have, that you imbibe, both not only of tabla but of melody, of dance, of everything, and not just of Hindustani music, all kinds of music perhaps. What sanskars you imbibe even from painting or poetry or anything, any creative pursuit, any creative area, if it inspires you in a particular way, your tone, because the tone is actually a representation, I feel, of your personality.
Yes.
So, yeah. So
how beautifully said.
So if some people have a very aggressive tone, and perhaps their personality is like that, even in terms of not only tone, the way your stage presence, the way you present the music also. Some are very flamboyant, some are more understated. So it actually depends on what your personality is like. So the basic tone doesn't change, but through a single recital also, you might change the tone, the tonal color, depending on what you want to say, what you want to communicate through a particular composition, or the manner you are, the exposition of that composition. You might want to change the color a little bit. So, for instance, this na stroke, you might want to have it a little sharper. I don't know whether it's easily decipherable.
Actually, with earphones on, it's pretty good. I can hear the extended resonance and even the sharpness and everything. I hope a lot of people have their earphones on.
And so similarly, this stroke, this ta stroke. So there's a resonance to it. But you might not want too much of a resonance. So you might move closer to the outer rim. So it depends.
Okay.
So the tone changes depending on where you're striking on the surface and what part of your fingers are touching the skin. And,
okay.
yeah,
That's
and when you're accompanying vocal or instrumental music, depending on the kind of sensitivity you bring to the performance, you will change the tone. If you're accompanying a santoor, the tonal color will not be the same, perhaps, as you would accompany a sarod, because the sarod is a stronger instrument, and compared to the santoor. So the not only will the volume change, but the tonal quality will also change.
And such decisions you take while on stage,
Yes,
while you're
yes.
playing.
Yes. And also, see, it depends also who the performer is. So maybe it's a sarod player, but
I was about to ask that.
his or her performance may not be of that kind where you need a different tone, so then you change that right there.
Right. Interesting. So that was Fankar Mankame's question. I hope he feels it's answered. We
Manka.
have about, this is his Instagram handle is Fankar Mankame.
Yeah, Manka.
Okay, sorry. Mankame. We have about 6 minutes or less. So there are a few more questions.
Sure.
Would you like to initiate another live session, because Instagram has a limit of 1 hour. So we can go on for about 2-3 more minutes, and then if you would like to have another round,
Sure.
we can end this live. And
yes, but they might just leave us.
sorry,
I said they might just leave us after this session. So I don't know whether the session. Let's take a couple more and then
yes,
we'll,
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So there's a question: what challenges you the most, being a soloist, accompanist, writer, author, composer, curator, or arts activist? Right. These are so many hats that you wear, and also I think a guru. Can I add that to it, Ragini ji? I hope so. That's another role that you have.
What challenges me the most? I think each of those roles are challenging in their own way, and but I really enjoy teaching, because when I'm teaching, I learn a lot. So of course I enjoy performance. Of course I enjoy composing. Of course I enjoy writing about music. But teaching is something that I'm always a student. So I think that is something that I cherish the most. That being a student through your life is something that is most important, I think.
Is it also the most challenging?
Being a student?
Yeah.
Yes, because you have to be humble. You have to keep your ego in check and know that there's a lot out there in the world that you need to learn from, and you don't know everything. In fact, you know very little of that universe.
How true. Yet I think you give goals to so many of us, aspiring, all of these aspiring soloists, authors, researchers, composers, accompanists. So maybe this is a good time to come to that question,
There's
which I had read out.
There's a good proverb for that, no? Jack of all trades.
Here comes your one-liner. How could we do without that?
Tell me.
Right. Nilay asks, can you also please expound upon your Riyaz schedule in your earlier days and how younger generations like us can take inspiration? Can we? Is it possible to answer this really briefly?
Yes, you just do this and I'll stop. Okay. So in the
Okay.
beginning, of course, the regimen was very strict, and you primarily focused on getting the technique right, and getting the technique right so that you play those compositions properly. Over the years, this has changed. Riyaz also has developed more shades. So there's a lot of introspection that happens. You don't do Riyaz always with the instrument, but you continue to think about music. That is not to say that you shouldn't be in touch with the instrument. So part of your day is always with the instrument, because that association, that tie that relation is very important, and it's very organic. So that of course is important. But apart from that, there is a lot of silent work that happens, even at the subconscious level. Things are happening. You're composing. You're recapitulating old composition. You're drawing inspiration from other sources. So all of these, you're listening to a lot of music. Listening is very integral to Riyaz. Reading
Wow.
about music is also Riyaz.
So you've done all of this in your younger days also when you were training,
2 minutes remaining.
right?
Yeah.
So, in fact, there are 3, 4 more very interesting questions, and I also had a few. If you're inclined, we could actually restart this.
What does CSMBS think?
If Urvashi or Vedehi are here with us, please signal. Let us know what you think. Should we go ahead?
Hey, somebody has said, big fan of your mellifluous voice, ma'am. That's obviously for you.
Oh, ma'am. Oh, I didn't read that. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay. So, I think we have a go ahead. We have a
Okay,
green signal. We can
please.
end this and restart. I think I was supposed to announce and ask everyone to come back, but I don't think I did that yet. We have enough people who have rejoined. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. So there are actually more questions coming in,
Sure.
and I have tried to note them down.
Easy ones, easy ones.
Okay, there's one asking, how do you and Shubhaji improvise and jam for a performance? How much in advance do you prepare? Easy? That's by Chirag Thakkar.
Yes. Hi, Chirag. Hi, Chirag. So we prepare on our own. I mean, individually, we do prepare. But that preparation is not like a rehearsal for a concert, unless, of course, you're working on a special thematic concert. Then you're doing that. But otherwise, your riyaz is your preparation. And that preparation is not, that riyaz you're not doing with a concert in mind. That riyaz is a solitary journey that every performer undertakes, to know yourself, actually, and to find your own voice through your instrument, whether it's a vocalist or an instrument. So so the riyaz is irrespective of any concert. Like, we are in this lockdown mode, so there are no concerts. Of course, there are live. I mean, there's these kind of sessions on the net, but there's no live concert happening. And but that doesn't mean that you stop riyaz. That riyaz continues.
Okay, I hope
Adequately
he felt this was.
yeah. But when it's
Also,
but when it's I'll just add one more thing, that when we do work on thematic concerts, so maybe we're working on new compositions, so maybe Shubha will share some poetry with me, and then I might think of a melody to go with that, and then and then there will be a give and take there. Or I will suggest a particular kind of rhythmic framework for a composition that she has made. And so that kind of work also happens.
When a composition is in process, work in
And once again,
progress.
that composition doesn't have to be program centered. Unfortunately, we are living in this event-driven world. Everything has to be event-driven. So whereas an artist's work happens even without these events.
Right, right. But adding to that question, if a composition is in a traditional form, let's say a thumri or a dadra, am I
Yes.
audible?
Yes.
Or even a khayal composition. So it will largely have a given structure that is known by everyone who's playing and everyone who understands the form. Then also, do you need to prepare or share notes um, or your individual riyaz? Let's say,
Individual riyaz, like I said, individual riyaz happens, but also when it's traditional material that you're looking at, or
new material in
or
traditional style.
new compositions, but in a traditional format,
Ji.
you still need to interact with each other. Like for instance, when we meet on stage, before that we are in the green room.
Right, right.
So, and normally we perform together. Shubha, Sudhir Nayak, fantastic harmonium player, and then dear
Ji.
and myself. Sometimes we have Murad Bhai also, Murad Ali
On the sarangi.
So we all, chat about what we are going to perform, and Shubha is really open to suggestions or requests from us as well. So it's a nice, easy kind of atmosphere.
For those 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
that you get.
normally we go an hour before the concert. We
Right,
do a sound
right,
check, and that sound check is normally handled by our audio engineer, Nitin Joshi. And then we go back to the green room and sit and talk about music, try out a few things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will go to a question by Yuvraj Sharma ji. How much liberty given to a tabla player while accompanying a singer or instrumentalist? What can you make of that question?
Yeah. So actually, many. I'm not too sure whether Yuvraj ji is a tabla player, but often tabla players. Sorry.
He's a theatre educator.
Okay. So many tabla players actually often ask this question or look at it as, is there space given to the tabla player to explore during a vocal recital or an instrumental performance?
So,
but
your solo space.
It's a solo space, But I never think of the total picture like that. So, like how many cycles are you going to get?
How many bars is your solo?
Yeah. So, I understand that it's a valid question from the perspective of a listener, perhaps. And perhaps some tabla players also feel a little constricted. Many tabla players feel constricted when they are performing with vocal music because normally there is a belief that in vocal music you're not supposed to have long solo sections, whereas in instrumental music you can have long solo sections. But these are just conventions, and you can break those also. And so finally, it depends on how you are responding to that moment, that musical moment.
And also the other people in the team, how
Absolutely, how they react to that also.
What kind of a collaboration?
Yes. So some people may feel really offended, if you do something, and or some people may egg you on, just go on. Some people, instead of a later response, they want something to happen in anticipation, and so you play something in tandem. So it depends, and in a particular recital, you might have different elements coming through.
Wow. So it helps to know the person as a person outside of the performance stage. Does that play a role? Is it helpful to be friends? Is it also helpful to be old colleagues?
Yeah, I mean,
Or what
can
about playing with a new person?
it can help, but sometimes, like in our everyday life, you know a person for 20 years, but you've decided in the back of your mind that, okay, I'm not going to work with this guy professionally. Okay? So I mean, he's a good guy, but work-wise, I don't think I want to work with him. So so it doesn't matter how long you know the person. Sometimes, you just met somebody straight on stage, not even in the green room, and things
Oh,
just it's just magical the way things work. So actually, it depends on the personality once again.
right.
What kind of personality each of them has, and are they able to have a nice conversation?
Musically.
Yeah,
Also, you meant,
musical. Yeah. Are they
right.
able to have a nice conversation? Are they able to have a conversation that will uh, 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 register with the audience even after the concert? And are they able to have a conversation which they themselves will take back home and enjoy memories of, and look forward to new conversations?
True, and probably also be, I don't know, think of reciprocating, um, participating as an audience member, going back, like you said, silently living with your
Yes,
instrument,
yes,
engaging with the material,
yes, absolutely.
thinking from an audience's point of view.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a very, I second this request. Srijan Mahajan asks, please play some Laggi before you go, Aneesh ji.
Okay,
So, in
sure.
fact, yes.
So Srijan Mahajan is a very, very, very popular drummer.
Yes,
He's a friend and a colleague, and of course, everybody knows him.
right.
Everybody loves his music. So this one is for you, Srijan. Are you going to sing for me? You can't play Lucky without having some melody, some. I would have asked you to sing, but then there's going to
The
be a lag.
lag.
Yes. So pardon me for my singing.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Srijan sends a very interesting emoticon. It's basically you're on fire, I think, with this
Thank
luggi.
you. So it's just for your information that this section, the luggi section, is something that is a climactic part of Thumri.
Right.
And so and this is when originally when the singer was also singing and dancing. So this would simulate the footsteps, the footwork
The
that
footwork.
would do. Now, of course, we don't necessarily have the dance to go with the singing, but this section continues because it's really nice to have that musical climax.
Would in fact, that this makes me think, would the luggi be any different if you were playing the same thumri for a Kathak dancer versus playing the same thumri for a vocalist? I've heard this thumri
Yes.
in Shubhaji's voice.
Yes. So it would differ slightly because depending on uh, depending on the dancer, for instance, and depending on the vocalist too. You know, uh, some vocalists or dancers have an ease with the tabla, and so they enjoy that section. And so when that happens, there's a lot of give and take, and the tabla player is inspired by what the vocalists are also, because the vocalists are not just supposed to sing the first line over and over and over again, like a record that's stuck. So yeah, so she or he has to embellish that, move a little away and then come back. But every time the soloist has to keep in mind what is the tabla player doing, because those responses, now the response has to come from the soloist now. So the tabla player is bigger there. So, but if you choose to just forget it, okay, you keep on playing, and I'll do whatever I want to. So yeah, then it's going to be tough.
This is when neither of them are listening to each other. It's
Yes.
talking to a wall and in parallel time.
That's right. Yes.
So this is a very busy part of the conversation in the Thumri.
Yes. I mean, everything is busy. Even when you're doing something very slow, it's still busy. You're not sleeping. So,
right.
Yeah, because let us say you're going at this tempo, Five, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, I could just do and just be on my own trip, just flutter it any which way I want to. But
right.
if I'm sensitive to what is happening melodically, then I shouldn't be doing that.
You're filling it up with discerning rests, if I may call them.
Yes. Yeah. So creating a space between the main bowls is very important, and of course it is equally important to embellish. But how much, that is a judicious decision that the tabla player has to make.
Right. Everyone's really enjoyed the luggi, and of course the conversation too. And I think I have also heard this in my journey so far of listening to music, learning music. लोग आपकी लगी के बहुत कायल हैं, and the tabiyat and the mijaz that you bring along with it, it's a visual treat to watch you play, especially the lagi section. Of course, the others also, but this is when everyone is absolutely hooked, and I remember that from many live performances that I've seen of you accompanying Shubhaji with Sudhirji.
Thank you.
So that was a Thumri, and we had a question.
Yes.
which probably relates to this. Prasad Kamath asks,
Yes.
Namaste Anishi.
Namaste.
As a composer yourself, what are your views on how a composition should complement the song text? And this is a lyrical oriented form, Thumri. So would you like to take this question here?
Yeah, I think the melody has always to keep in mind what the lyric is saying, irrespective of what form it is, whether it's a thumri or a khayal or maybe a popular song, in popular music. Uh, uh, you need to keep in mind. Otherwise, you can just replace that song text with anything else, right? And even when you have tarana bowls, for instance, you need to keep in mind the song text. Otherwise, then the melody can work as a template for any song text.
What about accompanying instrumental music?
Yes. What about that?
Of course, instrumental music doesn't have song text.
Yes.
Then in vocal music, song text maybe inspiring you in a certain direction, in a certain
Yes.
scape of emotions or subject, but
Yes.
instrumental music is
So
only melody.
instrumental music, I guess you do have freedom in that sense to lean more towards whatever melodic explorations that you want to do. But even there, you do have a certain sort. I mean, each instrument has its own language. For instance, in sitar, sarod, whatever, the plectrum or mizrab or java, what they are doing, those are the bowls.
Right.
So you can't just think of the melodic frame and not think of what is going to happen on the right hand on
The
the board.
phrase,
Yeah. So
the rhythmic phrases.
Yeah. So the phrases will have to be designed accordingly.
Right. They're no less than words then in that
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think we can take two more questions and then should we close?
Yes. Thank you.
Or in case you have anything else to share?
No, I think we can close before they all run away.
Yes. No, I think many of them are coming. There are new people also, and there are people who've been with us since 5 o'clock.
We always say, as musicians, it's good to end when people you feel that people want more.
Yes. Right. So I'm wondering, should I go onto those two questions or not?
Yeah, just take one more question and that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Why is it important for music to be secular, especially in these times? It's not related to tabla, so if you want to go to the other question, we can.
Yeah. I think it's necessary, not just for music, but for any human activity, to be secular, in the sense that you need to respect each other's space, not be exploitative, not want to overpower one or the other. You can take pride in your ideology, your religious doctrine, or whatever you call it, and but you don't have to say, you don't have to prove that it's the best. You don't have to say that you don't have to say that the others are bad. So I think it's very important to be secular, and I think our tradition has shown all along, because it has been a syncretic tradition, and
Right.
and so we need to learn from that, and that's why I think studying history is so important, because you can get a 360-degree perspective as a result of that. Otherwise, you have fixed notions of what the past represented, and then that's how you decide what the present, um, what's happening in the present and what the future has in store for you. So I
Right,
think,
right.
I think it's very important to study the past and learn from what it has had to offer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
I
thank you, Shivangini, for moderating this session. I couldn't have done this without your
Thank you. I think
and,
I think I may have gotten carried away, depending on what I also wanted to ask and
it has been really wonderful,
delve
very
into deep.
engaging conversation. And thank you, everyone, for sending in your comments and suggestions.
There have been so many saying, sorry, I didn't, I'm interrupting here. I didn't call out everyone's name, but it truly means a lot that all of you were here. So many hellos, namastes, wah. There were so many dads, mashallah. So many of them, Anish ji.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
thanks to all of them.
Thank you very much. And once again, thank you to the museum for having invited us to do this session. And do visit the museum when it's after the lockdown.
Possible too.
Yes.
It's definitely on my list.
Yes. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I'm ending this session here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.